Hello everybody, welcome to my watercolor class, and today we're getting inspired by some tulips as they are starting a new season. Now I have prepared two images for you today. One is for composition use. I love the way the flowers are spread in that photograph, the vase. I also love the reflection in the glass. All the rest details I'm not so interested in. Also, the photographs come out very dark, so I'm not too happy with that either. So to get some ideas for the colors, we can also use this image of a watercolor, a small sketch of tulips in watercolor. So we'll need a big wash brush today, pencil and rubber as normal, a range of watercolor brushes, maybe some more brushes. I've got a large one today as well. Possibly a wooden wedge for some of the stems or some of the petals to simplify them. And I have my paper. I'm using an A2 size paper. I just taped it up to about a square size. So the widest parts are well, I put it landscape way and I just typed it up. Whichever way you want to put it, to a rough square shape, that would be fantastic. Right, so first stage for us is going to be a drawing. So let's just do some rough planning. Now, because I would love us to do a reflection, a little bit of the reflection of our flowers, I'm going to keep our vase slightly higher than we might have normally expected it, where we'll put it, say, within a still life. So I'm going to place it again, not quite central. So if this is the center of my paper, okay, I'm going to put it maybe just a little bit. So that's my center roughly. I'm going to put it a little bit off center. So if that is the center of my pot, maybe my pot is going to be somewhere here. And I'm drawing it as a box, as a box, and I can move it about and make a decision. Maybe it will come up to the center. Just maybe it will be in line with my center line. Okay, we'll see. So if I draw a box, it's easy for me to move it about and decide on its size. So it looks quite small in comparison to the rest of the picture. Can I make it slightly bigger? Maybe just a little bit bigger. Maybe just a tiny bit taller here. Okay. Now I do want to have a lot of space left for all the flowers and their stems and leaves. Okay, so let's leave the pot as it is for now. Now also we'll have a reflection of my pot. So I can just continue it lower. Okay. And so just two vertical lines continuing, and a rough size for it where it's going to be. Okay. Now we need to decide also if our vase is standing on some sort of table, flat surface. We also need to work out roughly where the wall is going to be, or where the edges are going to be. Now we can make it as simple as a straight line. I'm just going to use this dark line just on the lower part of the pot as the guide. Now we could have done it more of an angle, but we're going to keep it, I'd like us to keep it quite simple, and I'll be mainly interested in to tone what's light, what's dark, where the reflections are going to be, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to keep it simple in this case as well. As I said, I'm not interested in any details of the kitchenware. I was just fascinated with the reflection in the glass. It was quite an accidental placement, and I love that. And now let's have a look how much space the flower is going to take. So if I were to go for the top volume of the flowers and roughly give myself a space, okay, where is my furthest flower is going to be, but the rest might be somewhere here. how they're going to come out. Yeah, it's almost like I'm doing a full bouquet. Okay, that one's going to go all the way around. So that's a big body of the flowers. And yes, there will be one sticking out. Maybe I'll just lower it a tiny bit somewhere here. Okay, got this very big one. Well, it looks extra big because we're looking right at it. It's right next to us. That's what's important. That's before we start even drawing our pot. I want us to find that little box for our flower. I'm using dark lines so you can see it on the screen. I'd like you to use some light lines so it's nice and easy for you to rub away, to move things as we will be adjusting shapes. I want the left and right side of my bouquet to be balanced. Yeah, if something a bit more bulky here, quite chunky, but there is a height to it, maybe I need to have another little tulip here at the bottom. We'll see how that will balance it. And then we've got a little bit more narrower. Maybe that section will become narrower. A couple of flowers will be just sticking out, but the volume of that dark will be becoming narrower. So it balances with the height and bulkiness of the left-hand side. The right-hand side is a bit more elongated. Okay, so that's how I'm looking at those shapes. Let's make it a bit more darker. Okay, just for you to see. Okay. So big shapes. Try not to over squash things. And drawing that big shape allows us to decide, can I make this shape slightly wider or longer, or will it need to go a little bit higher, or kind of the bulkiness of how much space or light we might leave. Just by looking at our sketch. One thing, we've got a photograph in front of us. Another thing, we need to make an exciting painting. And if things are not balanced in our painting, well, it doesn't matter how successful or not successful photographer is, it's not going to help us out, yeah? So let's work into that balance and that excitement of the whole bouquet. So we're working today from whole as a big shape, as a big block of green, as a big block of color, with much more details coming in into individual shapes of the tulips, maybe some details within the vase, but we'll look at that vase together first. At the vase and its reflection as a whole, within possibly together. Okay. Right, and now once we're roughly happy with the big chunk of our bouquet, we can start working out, breaking our flowers into smaller groups. So for example, in the center here on the top, we've got a group of 1, 2, 3, 4 tulips. So don't have to separate them into 4. I can look into them as a group. Definitely those 3 together, and 1 is just very close together here. Okay, and I can still keep them as little boxes, or slowly start, if I'll just keep them first as a big chunks, and then eventually I'll break them down into more round edges, and then we can work into the petals. I might not need to draw all the petals. I'll be working with a brush and create those marks with a brush. Okay. Don't be scared of exaggerating the size of the flowers. I'd prefer to exaggerate the size of the flowers rather than make them too small. Okay. We want them quite chunky. I might even think of making my front flower slightly bigger because I'm looking at the space here and the space I've got on the photograph here. So I think my flowers could be slightly bigger. Maybe this one could be lower, but and bigger. I think that would be much better. So again, that's the big shapes of the flowers rather than elegant petals details at the early stages. Important so we can change things, we can amend things, we can work our shapes. Okay, I can shrink that a little bit lower and also bring this flower slightly bigger. Okay, I'll try to remove supportive lines as I go for you to see things better. Okay, as well as some of my rubbings. Okay, let's see where these ones going to be later on. Now my top left flower looks its way escaping too far from the bouquet. I'm quite happy to keep it slightly tucked in and a bit more low. So I'm going to deliberately drop it down. Otherwise, it does look a little odd why it's so far away. Okay, and I started to enlarge my front flower and I haven't finished. So let's keep it slightly bigger here. Okay, big shape there. That's good. Okay, so I've got a group of 4 then on the top. And I have a group of, I don't know how many, just a group of flowers on the left-hand side. So let's have a look at them. I've got one flower which is looking almost at us, probably the largest one. And we can divide it almost like into a box with 2 components. One component is an open shape and another component, kind of the side of it, is the side of the flower, yeah? So if I keep the box straight and just divide it into a narrower section and a wider section, it almost simplifies it. By the time I'll do slightly round edge for this side, I've got my tulip more or less there. Okay. Right, and I've got another group, so this group continues. So I'm just going to look for rough shapes of maybe a silhouette of the flowers. I don't want to break them down into individual ones. I think when I'll start doing some brush work, the color will tell me how much of each flower I will see, and that will be enough. And I've got a smaller one, this little one, because we moved the red one lower. I'm going to keep it where it is. Another block. Okay. So supportive big shape of a bouquet silhouette could slowly go here. And while we're in this area, let's put a couple of stems just to give us an idea of the structures. So I'll start with a couple of straight lines from some of the central tulips. I'm not going to do the widths of the flowers. I'm just going to do one line to give me an idea if I like that one. Also, if I don't see the full length of the stem, I'm not going to draw it. I'm just going to do a little bit, just a little bit. Are they leaning a bit more towards the left? Are they leaning towards the right? What's happening? Yeah, are they more coming almost radiating? Those lines are coming in together centrally. And this tall flower from the top, Do I want to put it at the front of everything? Do I want it to put at the back? I think I might to put it at the back. I might put it maybe further long, a bit longer here and somewhere at the back. Because I quite like to paint this flower and I don't like it being covered. I think I'm going to keep it that way. You're the artists, you're the creators. Okay, so again, I've got a little bit of the opening of the flower here now. I can do tiny bit more details. Soften up this square shape to a little bit more round while I'm here. I can see a small stem coming from this little flower. It doesn't go too straight to the center. It goes a little bit more lower, and then something's changing to it, and we probably can't see it because of the leaves. So that variety is fantastic for us to see. Yes, same like this stem, I can just see it's going slightly different direction. And that would be lovely to see the changes. Right, a little bit of adjustments of light. So let's continue with a couple of more flowers on the right hand side. Now, I like the two red tulips here. Let's decide, let's put them not in equal spaces. If I've got one somewhere here, maybe they will be close together. One maybe slightly bigger, one slightly smaller. Okay, almost like little buckets in shape. Okay, roughly within my shape of the overall bouquet space. And I can also start planning their stems, directions. There is one more hidden flower, so we might just see a bit of color there. That might give me an opportunity to just put a bit of extra color. I'll leave it like that there because I haven't done any leaves yet. And I also have another flower, another red flower hiding behind the pink tulip. Right here below. Again, if I don't want it to be too significant, I can make it slightly smaller. Okay. All I'm missing is now a few leaves. Now, if I were to start drawing all the leaves, I'm going to get lost with a volume of lines and a volume of busyness of everything. Yeah. So what my proposal is to have maybe some of the key folds or the key shapes. So for example, a leaf here, which gives us a border for the lower part of the bouquet. It's almost comes together with, actually a little bit exaggerated it. It almost comes together with my tulip here. I'll do the stem of the tulip a little bit like this. And also I'm going to shape the tulip looking tiny bit up. Okay. A slightly lower stem because the head is going to be changed, slightly changed direction. Okay. It's going to look up gently. Classic tulips, when they're in a warm environment, they start leaning, that start spreading out, they start opening their petals. So that's my stem. And maybe the leaf will be coming in. Quite like that shape. I might just keep that shape as my leaf. So again, I'm adjusting the image to my flowers rather than just copying the space, copying the photograph blindly. Okay. Okay, I've got one leaf somewhere here, which might give me a nice gap. Okay, and that's when I can remove everything behind it. I will do only a little bit of planning of the leaves, and I'll do the rest with my brush. Okay, let's do another one. Quite like a little leaf which is turning somewhere, it bends, yeah, so I've got a bit of a width at the back. So then we can do some change of darkness and light. Oh, there might be somewhere pointy shape leaf as well. Okay. There is a little gap between the flowers here, so that's where I can put another leaf. And again, trying to create a little bit of a character for it, so tiny bit elongated first, and then it's getting some width. And it's exciting how the leaves fold. And I don't know what's happening to them as they're coming towards the center. It's not important to me yet. Okay, there's another stem here. So as I go and roughly plan my leaves, I also start adjusting some of the square shapes, tulips, a little bit more round edges. Okay. Now for the front flower, let's pay a little bit attention to it. And I think I also still need to change its shape slightly. I think it might need to be slightly wider here, because if I were to plan my petals, which I can see from the outer space, I'll have quite elongated, quite a wide inner cup of the flower. So if you think of a flower as a cup, there's a bucket, a small bucket, yeah, there's a box. Okay, so those are the rough shapes. Got another round petal gonna come up here, and this one is gonna break that wall of a bucket into more round shapes, sub shapes. So this should be our largest flower. We can roughly see the light there, almost like a little highlight of yellow or orange. Okay, that's why I'm missing the petal here. That's why it's will become a bit more wider. That's it. Here we go. And then the stamens, the darker segments in the center of the flower, might just give them a rough direction. Tempting to kind of color them in and make them stand out immediately, but it will be harder for you to work with watercolors if you start shading them in now. The darkness wouldn't settle there, so I would just put some directions in there if you wanted to, but maybe stop at that. Again, I'll do it on this flower because it's right, looking right at us. And this flower will also have a stem, and that's important than the range of leaves behind it. So we'll do the stem, and because the stem is very light, so I'm going to have a nice little curve for it. Because it's light, I'm going to do a thickness for it as well, and making sure that I'll leave it out light. Okay, so that's giving us a movement, it's looking towards us. Okay. And it links immediately with a lighter leaf. So I'm going to almost like wrap it in. So if my stem would have continued here, I'm going to wrap it in a little shape of a leaf, or even a couple, how they join together. I'm looking at the design of how the shapes work on a photograph, but I'm slightly exaggerating the curves and the height of it. Again, because I think that will look a little bit more natural. Sometimes our flowers in the bouquet might be bent or over squashed, and it's difficult to judge if they sit in there happily or if they're a little bit uncomfortable there, if we can say it that way. So I've got almost like a natural curve there to support the shape. And as I said, the rest of the flowers leaves will start blending, will start appearing. And again, so we worked a little bit into details. And now again, it's time to look back at the whole image. And it feels to me that my left-hand side is a little bit squashed. So that's why I haven't trimmed my paper. I have just taped it up. So I think I might move my tape slightly, maybe a centimeter further on the left. If you feel that your work stays strong, okay, hopefully I'm not lifting some paper here as well. Keep it as it is. This is a very personal choice here. Okay, I might have damaged paper here, so I might not need to go too far anyway. I lifted a little bit of paper on my tape. So hopefully that's not going to be a big deal. Because what I want to do here, I probably want to have a leaf coming out here. Yeah, maybe another one to just balance that length to come out here. And I think I might bring one of the flowers slightly out. I can't see what part of the flower I'm seeing, the side or the back or the front. I just want a little bit of that bulkiness coming out, so it's balanced. Right, these flowers stay in here. And because I have enlarged a leaf here, I don't think I'll need a small leaf. Let's have a look. It's quite a nice curvature to it, but I don't know if it's going to suit. Might be too busy here for me. I think I'll leave it out for the moment. So it's loads of choosing and picking what you want to bring in, what you don't want to, what works in exact settings. So you might want some extra petals and leaves. You might want less buds and bring extra leaves. You might not know that till you start putting the color. That's okay. Okay, so that's looking better now. And to balance that right-hand side, I'm going to add my reflection. So my reflection should be a little bit similar to the shape. So if I've got a line, okay, if you think of the base of my pot, if I continue that line, that's where the pot and the flowers stand. So that will be our mirror reflection line, okay? So we're not reflecting things from the back, the end of the table line. We're going to use the line where the pot stands. So if I've got that width here from the nearest leaf, so that's where so I can measure that leaf. I'll make my end of table line slightly lighter, so you're not too confused. So this line will have to be mirrored somewhere here, roughly. If you do it slightly different, that's okay. But it just roughly gives us that space. Okay, and I'll put the flower a little bit lower. I'm thinking of bringing my line of the pot slightly higher, because I'll need the center of the pot, not just the edge of it. Okay. So then that reflection is closer to us. So we're using the center of the pot because that's where our base is going to be, yeah? Our flowers are going to be grounded there. The reason I dropped it, so I'll put it a little bit higher, because our base will have an oval, but we're still looking, we'll be looking for that half of that oval, yeah? If that's the oval of the base, I'm looking for that halfway through line, if that makes sense. It's a little bit tricky to understand, so don't worry about it, just drop it a little bit, put it a little bit higher. Okay, so then I know then roughly where my leaf is going to be. And then I know roughly where my flower is going to be. And I will make it quite wet on wet, soft and smudgy and runny. So it will be just an idea of color coming together. And I do want this flower coming in here as well. We can't quite see it as strongly on a reflection, but I'm going to put two parallel lines where it's going to be dropping low. Okay, and all I need is the rough box of light where it's going to be. Same as this flower, I can just drop it. Parallel lines, looking for the rough side of it. This is what I'm interested in. 1, 2 flowers, a leaf, and another block of flowers. All the rest will be all fine. Okay. Still something feels a little bit unbalanced in my bouquet. I might need to put my little flower further back, further on the left. So I might still tweak it. Now the drawing takes a long time today, but the painting is going to be much quicker. Okay, that's my flower. That's better. I think that will be better. Extend that one a little longer. Okay, much happier with it now. Okay, so let's bring this flower here. And then I can remove all my supportive lines. A few lines for the vase, and we can start painting. Okay, that was my supportive line for mirror reflection. That is my table line, which I'll reinforce it in its darkness. I'll remove some of the supportive big shapes of the bouquet. I no longer need that. While you finishing your reflections. Okay. And now let's have a look at the vase shape. Now, I'll just rub out what's above here. So I've got a box, which is great. And I'm going to roughly place a big oval for the body, for the big belly of the pot. And using that shape, it will help me to find out there is a nice curvature coming out here. And a nice edge, doesn't look like a perfect straight edge. Got a nice curvature to it. Doesn't look like I can see any handles. So I'm just going to keep it simplified. And then I can remove all my supportive lines again. The foot of the pot stays a little tall. Okay, so I've got that lovely round edge parallel with the belly of the pot. And then I can do the same if I can continue my lines. So my reflection is going to have a parallel line to my pot. And then the round belly is going to be very similar. But that belly is going to be much lower placed. So we see that line is coming here. So it's going to be that oval. It's going to be much lower placed because we're seeing underneath of the pot. Okay. And then the neck, I can see roughly how narrow it's going to be. Okay, and again, it goes wide. And I'm going to leave it a little bit abstract because it's going to be hidden by leaves. We're going to keep it much more wet on wet technique. So things are going to be smudged there. We don't need to know too much details. I'll tidy my lines, remove all the supportive lines. Then we have a pot. I can keep the line between the bottom of the foot of the jug or the pot, whichever it is, slightly darker so I know that's the actual object, that's a reflection of it. What I can also plan for my reflection, because the flowers and leaves, so if this is our pot, they all come out that way. In the reflection, so that's our pot, they all come out that way, and we might even see some of them somewhere at the back. So I might just do a rough planning where some of the colors of the leaves and flowers might come in. So it's almost like a semi-circle at the back. Okay. And our table line will disappear. It will just stay hidden. We just need to have a rough planning, what's going to be slightly darker, what's going to be slightly lighter. All the rest will disappear. Now it's time to soften your lines. if you had some of the sharper lines, some of the wider lines, some of the very dark lines. And I'm going to photograph it and then just rub a few more lines to make them slightly lighter. Right, let's start testing our colors and let's start introducing some colors to our painting. Now I'm going to start the process with the colors of the tulips and then gently go around the leaves, the vase, and the last one will be the background. Okay, I want the tulips to stand out. I don't want everything painted within this piece. Some of the paper white will remain white. Let's just test some of the colors. I really like the sample of the watercolor here for the way how the color has been applied, how much light is left. So let's just test some of the colors. So we have some red tulips and we've got some pink ones. So for our pinks, we'll need something like classic cadmium, sorry, not cadmium red. Cadmium red will be fantastic for us for red tulips. I need some crimson. Okay, let's me find my crimson. I think that's the one. Just a little mucky here. I might just mix it here so you can see. And I can test it here as well. Lovely. And to help with my crimson, I can use any of the purples, magentas, or violets to go next to in the lighter, darker versions. So this is how it's going to happen. I'm going to go for my crimson. You're very welcome to try maybe a tulip on the side because we have got loads of them. There will be very similar way of painting. We can just vary there which one's leaning which way, how much color we're going to have, or how much other colors we'll be introducing. So if you do a group of them, that will be plenty. You don't have to finish them all in one day in a class. Right, so for example, if I'm looking at the central tulip here, lots of light and lots of dark shadows there as well. I'm going to start with light and I'm going to protect some of the light petals. So I'll have some big strokes. I'll have some quite dry brushy strokes. Okay. I can bring my magenta in. Okay, it looks a little bit mucky. I need to clean it. That's better. So that might have, I might just add something to the base. I will be changing my brush from a big mop brush or medium mop brush to a smaller round brush, which will give me more precision. Let's go for a little bit of magenta. I want to see maybe the back of the petal here. Maybe the back of the petal. Okay, what we can see at the back. Okay, now we can do glazes. It means that we can or paint the flower in one go, or we can let it dry and do another glaze on top. Now I'm going to do this one in one go. I'm just going to add a bit more violet now. Okay, just making sure it's a clean violet. Mix it with a little bit of my magenta. And I can just add a little bit of that color at the base and spread it out. Maybe connecting with the top part of the flower, just giving it an idea. Not all of it, but partially painted. That probably will be the most full colored in tulip. We will add some more shadows to it as it dries. So I can look at my sample watercolor here and find my flowers, which ones might be leaning which way, which one I want to paint in a similar way. Okay, again, I'm going to go with my mop brush for this tulip. I've got loads of lovely pointy petals. So I'm going to make them darker. I'm going to make them slightly different in how close they're together. And I'm going to keep it slightly paler at the base. Okay, with thinner shadow, but it has very little red in it. And again, I can go always a stronger magenta, always a stronger crimson, and while it's still damp, add a little bit more darkness to the edges. Okay. The key here will be in changing the colors. So if I've done some of the pinks, now I can put a little bit of the violet mixes together, giving me purple. Just a little bit of weight, maybe on the bottom part here. I know it's reflecting slightly here, but you can see a little gist there. Okay. And the next flower, that's could stay more or less as a silhouette. Going to leave out the other shape of the flower out. And the rest could stay together with a little bit of violet again at the base. So I'm varying which part is going to be a bit more violet, which part is going to be a little bit more pinky. Okay, I want to bring some more pink here for flower in between. Now, if you wanted to change the color of your flowers, that's totally fine. So for example, if you wanted to make the front one more pink, that's okay. If you want to have the variety, if you want to have them more red than pink, that's okay as well. You're the artist. I'm gonna go for my crimson and paint this one. And then add a bit more violet to it. Try not to overwork it. Just keep it fresh. Let the kind of color settled. If it's exaggerated color, it's okay. Don't worry about it too much. Let's bring some more bolder streaks in the center here. Okay. And I think the two, through the group of tulips here, I think they'll have more violety, purpley color. So if I'll mix my violet with a bit of pink or magenta, and just do a few strokes for it, for a group of them, just to almost have a little bit of white spaces left, but mainly get the colors in, kind of the darkness of it. And I think the last one is here, that little one. Again, just using a small brush, going to charge up a tiny bit of the pigment. Now I've got the light coming from the right hand side, which should have noticed, we should have mentioned earlier. So if it's coming from here, there is a pattern of on the flowers as well. These pink tulips, they've got a white base. So everything is quite confusing with light, with what's supposed to be darker, what's supposed to be lighter. So we're so far staying with one tone. Okay. And as the colors are drying, we can add a little bit more details of the flowers. On the right hand side, I'm going to use magenta and violet mixed together to have a little bit of sharpness, or you can do for the patterns of the tulips, but more likely where the petals overlap. I think that will be more exciting. How they almost close on each other. So tiny bit more darker line for where they overlap, and maybe softening that edge with some water. Again, I'll probably need to add more details to that. This one will have quite straightforward, maybe slightly darker left-hand side, where the petal overlaps, where the petal overlaps the other side. It's almost like a little shading or smudging. Okay, so if we can have our lines appear and disappear, our contrast appear and disappear, the more suggestive you can keep it, the better. I'll do something darker inside of the tulip so we can see the edge of the petals. Okay. Almost like a little crown. this super white, I might just gently go. We need any curvature emphasized. See if you can just bring a little line in. The rest I'm going to keep quite simplified, slightly darker at the top, as if we can see something above, and maybe one of the petals slightly lighter than the one behind it. Again here, slightly darker edge of what we can see inside. Maybe slightly darker something underneath here. And very suggestive. That the group of tulips on the left. Something slightly darker. I can see they're turning. That's more important. Actually gives me an idea that this could be even darker. That's much more braver and effective. And then I can soften part of that. That's better. Now, if I need more details on these flowers, I will do it later. I will start working on my other red flowers and some of the leaves. Right, now I'm going to start working into some orangey red tulips. So I'll need to work out which colors I'm going to go for. So I'll have my 1 or 2 different versions of orange and cadmium red. Okay, that's will be good. Can also use a little bit of yellow as well to help my orange to stand out and be quite powerful. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to wipe my palette here. And I'll do very similar principles. So if I'll start with some of the lighter colors, so my yellow mixed with orange. And let's do one of the flowers here. I'm just going to rub out a very dark straight line here for the edges. And I can create a darker edge with my brush. So nice pointy edges. Almost like press and drag. Yeah, or lift. Okay. And while those colors are still wet, I'm going for cadmium red or deeper orange. And I'm going to round up the edges and let the red merge with those oranges. Let them just run quite nicely, softly. We can add the sharpness of it again later on. And again, just a little bit more round base. Most importantly, just let the colors merge a little more. If you want to have more closed buds, yeah, we can just extend the shapes a little bit more stronger up, quite like that. And I can emphasize it by bringing slightly darker red here. Okay. And again, I can go for lighter orange yellow. I want the tulips to be more closed. I need to make sure that the petals are leaning towards the center at the top. Creating that lovely oval shape. And then adding a bit more red. The center or lower part. Okay, they come out a bit stronger than I intended, but they're looking quite good. Doesn't leave me much room to make them darker though. Let's have a look if I can make some of these ones slightly lighter. So a bit more yellow and orange again. And let's have more water here. Let's do that for the centers. A little bit more water. And to have some sharpness for the petals, if I were to put a little bit of my cadmium red on a palette and use my wooden wedge, I can draw the petals or the edges or the patterns of them with my, that's quite exciting, with my wooden wedge. And again, back to a little bit more orange. Maybe finish it off with a brush, so it's not too much repetitive, lovely pattern. That's quite nice. And again, repeating the process, bit of orange yellow. I'll do quite a lot of that diluted. I'm placing it strong on the paper, and then I'm adding water. Okay, and then I'm gonna go for my wooden wedge. I'm gonna drag some of that color across. Okay. Add a bit more yellow and orange at the base of the flower. And the top, I can go for probably a bit more cadmium, sorry, crimson, because I want to make a bit of a shadow. Okay. And that shadow could remain slightly darker. The less you fiddle with flowers, the better. And that's where some of them work with a wooden wedge comes in, because that gives you a little bit more details, but it's not overworking shapes. Quite like that. Okay, I think I missed one more purpley color here. Okay, maybe I'll come back to it. Let's do this front one. Loads of yellowy orange, quite diluted, maybe a bit strong in the center, because that's what we need to glow. And then dilute it out and use a little bit of a similar diluted yellowy orange on the outer petals, and then use crimson, not crimson, cadmium red, sorry, cadmium red and orange, cadmium red on its own, and use our wooden wedge just to do a bit of sketch. I can even use a bit of water, dip my wooden wedge in some water. Yeah, it just gives me, look at those type of textures. I'm just using it widthwise. Somewhere sideways, somewhere widthwise. And then I know in the gaps here, I can fill in very charged up cadmium red. Okay, some nice darkness is going to come in. And on the outer layer, I can use more orange yellow with a bit of water. We've got nice three-dimensional effect. And to make it fantastic and extra outstanding, I'm going to go for dab of violet with my cadmium red to show a bit of depth. And finally, strong violet on its own. And I'm going to use my wooden wedge to have a couple of those stamens sketched. And if they come out a bit smudged or a little bit dragged, that's okay, just leave them be. Maybe even use that as a little bit of a line for the flower, quite like that. Creates a nice edge. That will be a good three-dimensional flower for us when we start adding greens. Okay, just double check it, nothing is running where I don't want it to run. Emphasizing my curves of the petals here. That's it, so it stays where it's supposed to stay. I missed one petal, so one flower in pink, so I'm just going to edit here quickly. Use some violet to help out some of the edges. That's fantastic. Can I help my other flowers with a little bit of that violet? And tiny bit of water. That's enough. Great. Now let's have a look at some of the greens now. I'm gonna go for my light green, for any of your lighter versions greens, and some yellow. It could be hooker's green, it could be emerald green, any of the greens with a little bit of yellow. And I'm gonna look for some of the leaves which will have some light on them. For example, we might have at the tip of the leaf. It might have at the middle. It might be the stems. Okay, partially stems. This bold, strong stem is going to have some light in it, so that yellowish green is going to come here. Okay. Any other lighter stems, we can change their density through the stem, but to start with, that will be a good idea to have that color through. Okay, that one is going through somewhere here. Don't take them all the way down to the vase. Okay, this one's going to have some darkness. That's okay. There will be another one somewhere here. There's another one. Most of the tops of the stems will have that lighter tone. And what I'm going to do as well, I'm going to use a dab of orange, light orange or yellowy orange with my lighter green. I'll do some of the almost like tops of the leaves, so maybe some of the surfaces where, especially on the right hand side. So for example, this is one leaf. I know we haven't drawn them all, so this is how it goes. So something there on the side, maybe something leaning out, what we might see a bit better. Oh, I spotted that I haven't painted another tulip, but we'll see if we can bring them back. Okay, anything else? Almost like a borderline where there's background and there are leaves. That's kind of the tops of them. Is there going to be any white left or not? Okay, so I'm looking for those spaces of what's behind. Now, on the left-hand side, we're going to have more darker tones, but I'm going to still bring a tiny bit of light in the leaves as well. And my central, that's leaf withdrawn, and next to the curved stem, I'll keep that one pale as well. And variations here. Okay, so we've got a yellowish green tones in our leaves. My next step for the leaves, I'm going to start adding a tiny bit more cooler color. So a little bit of emerald green mixed with that lighter green we had. Okay, if it looks too green, almost like a very cold green, don't be scared of adding a dab of orange or like a sepia, like a warm brown, light orangey brown to it. So it will be a darker version, but don't want it to be too direct emeraldy looking. Now I'm going to cover all the rest of the spaces I want to keep as leaves. And then I'll do the shadows on top. So anything else I want to keep in green. It doesn't have to be perfect, just look for the shapes we might have left. So for example, if we have the top end of the leaf from the top of the bouquet and it leads towards the pot, that's it. Just follow the lines going away from the top towards the center. That's it, you're on the right track. Okay, if we haven't decided if we need an extra leaf or stem, we can have a look at that and add. Oh, this is reflected here now. I'll do it temporarily here, slightly higher, so you can see this area. I'm going to leave some of the gaps, those light. So I'm trying to go and avoid them. I'm going to try to paint so there is no white gaps left, if I can. Okay, just paint it over the stem. I want to keep very light. So if I'll use a damp but clean brush, I can remove that color running into my stem. And what I can do later on, I can emphasize the darkness behind it. So my stem will remain light. Okay, any other areas? Now I emphasize some of the stronger darkness of the green. Let's go for slightly something lighter as well again. So I'm just painting the shapes slightly lighter, slightly darker as my color is running out, adding one color or the other, slightly different proportion of darker green, orange, or lighter green. It's becoming more exciting now. Okay, I think I quite like that darkness here, so I'm going to bring it at the front as well. So without counting leaves, we start to have a range of greens. And as the green will be drying, you can also emphasize some of the shadows. Just bring some of the tiny bit more darkness here. I think I need to be patient. Or I can pick up a smaller brush and charge the color, so meaning go quite strongly. So if I'll go for emerald green and also have a dark, almost like hooker's green, I can do little shapes, little corners. Close to the flower might be a shadow away. Now this could be done, as I said, or on a wet surface or on a dry surface. Both are very effective, or even a combination of both. So we're now confusing the viewer how things been done. Where is each leaf? It doesn't matter. So I'm using again emerald green and one of the darker greens. The more contrast you will have, the better. One thing is blending some of the edges of green within the segments. Another one is having everything is too similar in tone. So be careful not to over blend. Now moving more towards emerald green now. And on the right hand side, I'm going to add a little edges to some of the emerald green to my leaves. So they had loads of yellows, and emerald green will make them give them extra contrast in color. So my leaves are lost and found. A little bit more concentrated green. And I'm ready to do my vase and a bit of the background. We'll do some happy dots on my leaves as well, just a few accents of darks, maybe the tips, maybe the centers, just to have a bit more of that variety of depth. That charginess of darks is there. And that might have a shadow as well from a tulip. So the curvature of the petal is shown. Again, we could have used our lovely tool to have some veins. Sometimes it's too much, or sometimes we can just edit as the shapes are painted. I might just do a couple of here. And just be careful not to overwork it. Right, now our flowers are ready. Petals could be touched at the end, but most of it is done. Leaves are ready. So now let's have a look at our vase. Now, on the photograph, I have quite a lot of light tones on the vase itself and loads of darker tones on the reflection. I might not make it as dark, make it more exciting. Vase is not white. Well, it is white in real life, but because of the loads of shadows, we're not going to make it perfect white. So I'm going to paint the whole vase in a very pale purpley color, almost like what we've done with some of our first tulips. I'm going to go for crimson, and I'm going to have some violet. Mix it together, dilute it. Okay, so I have maybe something similar. Okay, maybe a tiny bit more into the red. Okay, that's fine. And then I'm going to test my ultramarine blue. So I just need to make sure I have it here. That's it, ready. And I'm going to use a small brush for it. I'm going to put it quite concentrated and not as much water. So I'll use a tip, we'll use a kitchen towel to take some of the moisture away from it. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to paint both the vase and reflection in one go. So the vase, I've got rubbing from my razor, that's okay. So the vase is painted as a whole, a little bit pinkish. looking. Okay. So almost like I'm doing a very wet wash. So the extra moisture, I want it to stay wet. And I'm going to let it run further into the base. But now I'm going to add a dab of ultramarine or violet into that. So it will be slightly darker, but also will change the color slightly. Okay, so all of that one together. And what I'm going to do with the vase into the reflection, it's going to have sharp edges earlier on, and then where it's going to start meeting the flowers and all the rest of the shadows, I'm just going to wash my brush, dab it on the kitchen towel, and just soften it, because we haven't decided what we're going to do there. Okay. And then that ultramarine is coming in on a thin brush with very little water in there. Okay, some paper ribbons still there. And now I can do a little bit of playful pattern making. The more concentrated your blue is going to be, the better. So I'm going to start with some of those soft strokes, because my paper is quite wet here. So they will appear, those strokes will appear quite diluted. And then as they will start drying, I can make it really, really concentrated, hardly any water. And I can add a little bit of extra details. Let's say there might be some shapes a little bit more emphasized. Okay, I might just do some dotting. Okay, just helps the form to come out a bit better. Maybe something on the base. And the same is going to happen on my base of the vase, but I'll work for a tiny bit more indigo. My ultramarine mixed with a bit of indigo. So I'll start with some big blocks, some big shapes. Becoming quite dark here, can't quite see what it is. And then I'll just add a bit more indigo to my ultramarine. The shapes will come out even darker. Again, just double check that your brush doesn't have too much water. Maybe just emphasize the edge. Okay, so something's happening there. Also tells me that above my pot, I can have a little bit sharper line for my greens. Okay, that's better. So then the pot stands out a little bit more independent with its edge. Excellent. And then all we have left is a bit of background and a little bit of reflection. Now a glass. Now reflection will be more fun to do, because that's going to be loads of diluted colors running into each other. So all I'll need is my wash brush, and I'm going to load it straight away with a hint of purple blue, similar to what I've been using on the vase, but maybe more into the blue tone. So I'm going to mix it here. So a little bit of, violet, a little bit of ultramarine together, quite a lot of water. And maybe watch me first to know what's going to be happening. So I'm going to paint all of this area here together. If the vase is going to run, that's fantastic. Just the reflection of the vase, I meant. Going to paint all our possible reflections of the leaves and anything else out, tiny bit more extra water. So around the reflection of the vase, we're using this violet and ultramarine diluted wash. Okay, I have loads of sections where maybe my fingerprints stain. Okay, that's good. And then I soften the edges of the wash with a bit of extra water. And now I can even work with the same big brush to be brave. I'm going to introduce quick colors. For example, I'm going to go for crimson, my reds. So for example, it doesn't matter if this flower is orangey or if it has more purpley color. I'm just going to go for crimson. Okay, one crimson, another crimson. One big shape here for crimson. Another one here, maybe somewhere at the back. I'll just scatter them. If I want to put a little bit more cadmium red, cadmium orange, I'll use the same big brush and just put few strokes of a little bit of extra somewhere there. Okay, so it starts having an idea there's some sort of flowers reflections. And that's why I'm doing it with a big brush. Everything stays wet, everything stays quite fresh. Now I'm going for the same colors we used for the leaves, that lighter green and a bit of emerald green. Okay, just mixing it here together. Okay, maybe a tiny bit more emerald green or even blue. So just, I want to have more darker version of it. Maybe a bit of ultramarine blue. That's better. And I'm just going to add few spontaneous lines, shapes, blocks of how some of the leaves might be reflecting in that surface. And I'm going to let it be. If something is running, I'm going to encourage it to kind of to run down rather than spread further, or run kind of straight directly down. Okay. Okay, that's by accident lifted, so let it keep there. I can add slightly darker tones by using my ultramarine blue and violet. If I wanted to emphasize this the shadow under the pot and really stay brave with my big brush, kind of go for big shapes of darkness. Okay, we've got just shadows. We don't have just what's reflecting, we also have shadows. Okay, maybe something tiny bit more there. Love the foreground now. And all I need to do is now the background for the top part of the painting. Let's give you a bit of time to do your version. And now let's just balance the base of the shadow with a little bit of darkness behind. Now I have a very large mop brush. I'm just going to swap my pots here. Now, any other wash brush is good. The reason I'm using the mop brush is because it has a pointy end. So it means that I don't have to go too abruptly. I can easily go between the flowers or leaves where I'm applying some water. So I'm going to just apply the water and a couple of corners, a little bit at the top, not coming too close to the flowers, maybe at least 1 centimeter away from the flowers. And I'm going to add a little bit more here at the base. You can do it in smaller section. You can do right hand side, then we can add some color, and then you can do left hand side, and you can do the bottom part, and you can do another part of the bottom. Right, color wise, I'm gonna go this time a little bit more violet and a little bit of emerald green, or if you have a turquoise. So I'm gonna have a combination of those two colors. We need to have a little bit of darkness in some places, but I'm going to keep whites as well. Okay, let's go for diluted. So I'm introducing the wash on top of my water. So a little bit of violet, a little bit of turquoise, white left. Okay. Where I have more violets, maybe I need to go more into the turquoise. Where I have more greens, I'll go more into the violets. Okay. Oops, what's happened here? Okay, I'm gonna have a bit of a line here on the side where my tape ripped some paper, which is a shame. It's gonna catch on that now. Now I have loads of gaps in between my flowers and stems. I'm not too worried about it. What I will do, I will use my brush. Okay, there's a strong pigment here. Okay, that's better. I'll use my brush to guide some of these colors in, and I'll leave some of them staying blank. Okay. So now my surface is getting covered, but not all. I don't want it to be perfectly gray everywhere. Okay, I'm going to leave some more white, maybe around behind the pot. And now I've got my overall darkness. I can emphasize the darkness even more. So now I can stay braver and introduce maybe a bolder violet or a bolder turquoise. My brush is molting. So then the pigment is separating, kind of it's running into those little gaps I was just touching. Okay, that's quite nice. Some of it just holds on in there. Okay, I've got some bristles left. I do want something a bit more darker at the top. Yes, my bristles leaving some marks I don't want. Okay, just a little bit more darkness somewhere here. It's my new brush. It's molting, folks. I'm just chasing a few bits of hair, and I better change my brush now, as it gives me a bit of bristles texture. Okay, where the colors might have run, I'm going to collect them to keep the flowers and the greens fresh. I don't want any drips here. So I'm keeping the darks of my background reasonably high up. Okay, let's just mix all this one. Don't want them too patchy. Okay, and I will put tiny bit more darkness, maybe close to the edge of my table, just to show the space is changing. And again, I'll just go into my lights. Now, if for whatever reason, let's say you didn't get to the background, you just painted the flowers, your door, your flowers and leaves, you're worried about the background, leave it out. Okay, Background is an extra option for us if you wanted to go a little bit more brave and play with the color and how it could give us some light. But there's nothing wrong with leaving the painting without the background or with a very soft touches on a couple of corners, or maybe just a nice reflection. I still catch some of the violet on my flowers here. If I can control that in the next few minutes as it settles, as it runs down, my flowers will stay fresh. Also missed a couple of stamens, which I can do with my stronger violet, and then I'm finished. Just to get a little bit more character for my flowers, bit of emphasis. Sometimes again, less is more. So don't have to do many or don't have to do any if you don't feel it will improve your piece. I'm just improvising on some of them because I think that just gives the lovely turns and twists and shapes a little bit better. Some of my flowers here. And I'm going to stop. Okay, that's quite nice. Little branch came up here. So loads of boldness, loads of bravery today. Well done for staying with me all the way. And I look forward to seeing what's happened to your experiments today, pushing our boundaries further and further.